everyone, I'm here to do the top 10 most influential books tag. The top 10 most influential books in my life are a mix of novels and also some art books, a couple. So let's get started. The first fantasy novel I really picked up was Homeland by R.A. Salvatore. And when I was a kid, this was like the first... It sort of opened my eyes to what was possible with books. It follows Drizzt Do'Urden, and he's a drow, and he's all like the best fighter and all that stuff, and he lives underground, and this is the story of him leaving that life because the rest of the drow are sort of evil, and he has a good heart or whatever. And anyway, it was really good when I was a kid, and then as I got a little bit older, I started reading The Lord of the Rings, and I just couldn't get into Salvatore's books anymore. I don't know. Lord of the Rings kind of crushed everything I knew about fantasy. Before, I was really satisfied with whatever, and then after reading Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, my standards went way, way up. I chose to show The Return of the King because I remember as a kid reading this. When I got to the end, I cried and cried. Not because it's a sad ending, because it's far from a sad ending, but just because it was over. Oh, all my tears. I just sat in the car and I cried because it was over. And I mean, I know there's all the appendices and I know there's all the extra stories, but just this story in particular just caught me by the heart. A book that affected me more recently, I read a few months ago, is The Stone Angel by Margaret Lawrence. This book follows an older woman, and she has held on to this pride her whole life, and now in her older age she is... her son and her daughter-in-law are looking at putting her into a home, and she can't really handle that and tries to go live on her own, and it's so moving, and it made me think a lot more about growing older and living my life the way I want to lead it, and forgiveness, and just very, very good book. It was one of the most thought-provoking books I've read in years. Harry Potter series, of course, by J.K. Rowling. So, one of the books that has affected me in my art career has been How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way by Stan Lee and John Buscema. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm brutalizing names. Anyway, in animation school, this was one of the books that were on our to-buy list, and I was kind of thinking, like, why? We're going to actually learn from a how to draw comics book? Really? For animation? Really? But actually, it was really helpful to help me think in 3 dimensions. When you're drawing for animation, you have to be able to think simply and add the details later. You have to be able to get your gesture drawings down for effective communication. But you have to get your poses, you have to be clear and concise on what each pose is meaning to do. Like you can see clearly that's a person diving, even though it's just a bunch of circles. So anyway, it really helped me open my mind and sort of helped me draw a lot better than I did. So my teacher actually assigned me to complete this entire book in a weekend, and I did. I went through every page, did all of the exercises, and it helped so much. I might actually do that again sometime soon for a refresher, but yeah. Jeff Smith's Bone, the graphic novel. This opened my mind so much. It influenced me a lot of what is possible in graphic novels, in comics. What kind of characters that can be so powerful even if they look goofy. Like, if you look at what Bone looks like in comparison to his co-star there, like, he looks like a goofball and she looks so beautiful and elegant, but they get along perfectly together, and they seem to mesh in this world, and the fantasy elements, the comedy, every single page has its own story, has its own message. It's just incredible. If you want to get into comics and fantasy, and just try Bone. I hope you'll enjoy it because it has changed my life. Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. I read this in high school and it blew me away. It was so scary and I was just sucked into the world and the characters, and it didn't feel silly at all. Like it felt so serious. And often I find with sci-fi or fantasy there's some elements that you know, are kind of whimsical or anything, but this is just such a bleak but realistic look at what could happen in the future, I suppose. Yeah, the third part of this trilogy just came out recently and I'm in the middle of reading it. I'm really excited. But yeah, Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake blew my mind. Jan Martel's Beatrice and Virgil was the most upsetting book I've ever read, but it made me think a lot harder about history and the way we convey history and the way we learn about our history. I feel like I should make a video about this book. Actually, this book is what got me into BookTube. I was looking up people's opinions about this very book and I found One Book, One Review talking about it, and she opened my eyes to BookTube. So yeah, go Jan Martel, go One Book, One Review for changing my life, influencing me that strongly. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I don't even know what to say about this book. It was nothing like I expected, but in the best way possible. I love reading classic horror novels, and this is my favorite by far. Closely followed by Dracula, but this book, it makes you consider so many things, and for the time it was written, it's just incredible that she came up with this, because the ethics of raising the dead and the ethics of genetics creation, and then Dr. Frankenstein knew it was so horrible, but the monster wanted a companion. That's all he wanted, and Frankenstein could not bring himself to ethically create another. Just, oh. If you haven't read this book, you should probably give it a shot. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Oh my. The Meek by Dershing Helmer. This is a webcomic. It has, I think it's been on hiatus for a long time, but the art in this book, the artwork, the storytelling, I'll put a link to the comic below so you can read the whole thing if you want. It's not completed, I'm just warning you. You might get your heart stuck on it and be let down, but believe me, the archives are so worth the read. They're incredible. The artwork, the storytelling, it has changed how I think about graphic novels and how I want to write my own graphic novel and how I want to tell the stories of my own, the way I want to work. Check this out. Do yourself a favor, check it out. I'll leave a link. So yeah, those were the books that have influenced me. Ta-da! Hope you have a great day. Keep on reading. Bye!